Cactus 1549, runway 4, clear for takeoff.
Sully. Sully. Sully, we're too low. Sully. 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 Sully, where are you?
Hello and welcome to Frame by Frame.
Potentially your favourite film and TV review show on the internet, hosted by us.
I'm Jim.
And I'm Nick, and this week we're here to talk to you guys about Sully.
So Sully is the new film by Clint Eastwood about Captain Chesley Sullenberger, an airline pilot who crashes a plane into the Hudson River in New York. The story kind of focuses on the aftermath of the events and whether or not Sully did the right thing.
No one warned us. No one said you were going to lose both engines at a lower altitude than any jet in history. This was dual engine loss at 2,800 feet, followed by an immediate water landing with 155 souls on board. No one has ever trained for an incident like that.
So Nick, this is obviously based on a true story. Where the headlines went around the world. How familiar were you with the story?
Well, I think it's definitely something everyone should be at the very least aware of. I know I was heading into the film, obviously Miracle on the Hudson, early 2009, and it's really kind of hard to ignore these massive events, massive tragedies involving, you know, an aeroplane in New York City. It's not something that you can miss, and it's something that's obviously a lot of attention goes towards, especially since 9/11.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew like the headline version of events. I didn't really ever read more deeply into it or follow the story much after the actual event itself.
I guess I was in the same boat. Obviously, going into it, I was aware that Captain Sullenberger was fortunate enough and skillful enough to land the plane in the Hudson and not lose anyone on board. And I always just took that on as one of those miracles that we hear about in society and whatnot.
Yeah. So part of the film is recreating the events. You know, they go a pretty thorough recreation and a pretty tense recreation of the events.
One of the great highlights of the film is, like you're saying, they're recreating the events, they're recreating the aftermath, but they're actually able to capture a lot of the emotion that it would be kind of hard to feel as a third party that wasn't either there at the time, or for us, because we were quite a bit younger, we weren't necessarily as involved. But being able to see that and have like a retrospective on this event, it's a real testament to Tom Hanks' acting ability and Aaron Eckhart as well. But you were able to feel, you felt senses of relief, you felt sorry, you felt happy for these characters at every twist and turn in the film.
Yeah, I thought Tom Hanks was a real strength of this film. He was just so kind of understated and strong.
Yes.
He didn't overact, he didn't go over the top. He just always seemed very calm, very in control, very confident in his own actions. And it kind of made the audience kind of root for him. You want this guy to come out of this well.
Trademark Tom Hanks in knowing he knows his role and he knows how to play it well. He doesn't need to go over the top in order to communicate. Obviously, a lot of the emotional quandaries that Captain Sullenberger was facing during this time.
Yeah, and a lot of it focuses on the hearing, on whether or not he did the right thing by crashing in or whether he could have gone back to the airport.
Yeah.
They actually thought towards the end of the film, they actually made the hearings pretty tense and actually kind of engrossing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Surprisingly.
There are points, it feels like watching a trial for anything that you see sort of like, there's lots of sort of trial shows and murders out nowadays where you're sort of thrust into the courtroom. Lots of sort of courtroom dramas, they focus on solely the action of what's going on inside the courtroom. And I think a lot of them sort of focus on the specifics of legal cases. But Sully, you're siding with Captain Sully and all of his crew. And so when, towards the end of the film, when things start to go their way, or perhaps when things don't, you're on their side. You definitely appreciate the emotion they're going through.
Absolutely. And I found the recreations of the event and the aftermath where they're doing an investigation into what happened, I find that stuff really gripping, but that was probably only about an hour of the movie.
Sure.
And then there's that other half an hour which was maybe filler for me. They had a few flashbacks which I don't know if really added anything. They had a few conversations with the wife on the phone. Obviously an emotional time, but I don't know if that really added anything to the movie for me.
I'd probably agree with that in the sense that there are points in the film where this specific flashback you're talking about, and I don't think this spoils anything, but there are points where it flashes back to Captain Chesley Sullenberger growing up with having an aviation background. The film references that he spent at the time 42 years in the aviation industry in the field flying planes and whatnot. And I get that there's a point where we need to sort of focus on the fact that he is obviously a talented pilot and he knows what he's doing, but I don't necessarily agree with saying that seeing him as a kid flying it didn't do a heck of a lot for me in terms of adding to the character.
And some of the characters actually on the plane that they tried to develop a little bit of backstory, and with maybe that didn't quite work for me either. What about you?
Look, I found it endearing to a point where there was obviously a mother with the child. So when we were seeing that the plane was going to go down, and us as viewers, we know that everything in the end it's okay. But you know, at the time you're thinking, oh, what's this mother going through? What's the child going through? And I did appreciate that, because it definitely made me think about what I would have been like being a passenger on the flight. But it's definitely one of those things that either the film has to sort of whole hog it and start to develop more stories of passengers, or forfeit that completely and focus solely on the captain and crew.
Yeah, absolutely. Overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it probably more than I thought I was going in.
That, yeah.
I thought maybe I don't know how they're going to stretch this small story out, but it was pretty engrossing for the most part. Good acting, as we've mentioned.
Really great cast.
Quite an emotional journey. Like, even though it's an event that everyone pretty much knows about, they managed to bring a lot of emotion to the story, didn't they?
Couldn't agree more. There are points when, like I said, you're there with them. You feel sense of relief when they actually crash down into the Hudson River and everyone on board is okay and they get out. It felt like this sense of elation. I'm like, no, people aren't going to die. This is one of those good things in life. You hear about horrible plane accidents where people don't make it out, and it's it was really positive to see.
We're going to end up in the Hudson.
I'm sorry, say again, Cactus?
This is the captain. Brace for impact.
All right, that's what's been happening on the big screen. Now turning our attention to the small screen. It's the new fall TV season, Nick.
Yes, definitely. There's lots of things coming out for this next fall, but perhaps nothing's been more highly anticipated than the release of Donald Glover's new show on FX, Atlanta.
Highly anticipated and highly reviewed. All the critics have been loving it. We've watched the first 2 episodes, and I've got to say it's a really strong start. I can't remember a show that's kind of found its groove so early, and it's just like 2 episodes in and you just feel like you know the show and you're comfortable with these characters already.
Yeah, definitely. 2 episodes out, as I'd say, that 3rd episode that we're going to watch when we get home, mind you, definitely found its groove. I think it definitely testament to the writing of Donald Glover and Stephen Glover, who's written some of the episodes as well. Very quirky aspects of comedy. Doesn't have to be those like laugh out loud, ha ha gags and whatnot, but definitely that certain style that he brought to aspects of Community when he was writing for 30 Rock. They all come through, and when you put them in that sort of context of Atlanta, perhaps some lower income neighborhoods, it works really well.
So 2 episodes in, and the storyline is really Ern trying to become a manager for his cousin who's trying to start out in the rap business.
Yeah, Paperboy, making it big after a really good mixtape that he released, and you sort of get the vibe that it's been something that he's been working on for a little while in the show, especially in the context. And yeah, it's about him trying to help his cousin get big and make a little money for himself on the side for his family. Yeah, his family. He's got a little baby, Ern does. That's all part of the story. Yeah. Atlanta itself, the city plays, is almost a character in the show. It plays a huge part, the kind of lifestyle and culture. Yeah, just on the comedy you mentioned, Nick, I found it really unexpected because the show has kind of got these pretty heavy themes, Some of it's about violence and, poverty. But every now and then there's just this kind of quirky little bit of humour that'll come out of nowhere, and it's quite jarring but really effective, I found. A lot of the characters, obviously, because of the writing, they all come off as relatively funny, but I personally found no other character funnier than this man right here in the middle, Darius, who's kind of a Paperboy's sidekick, if you will. I don't know if he's been painted as sort of, he's perhaps not all there, high all the time or whatnot, but he's got some great one-liners. And as you start to watch this show, I've been spending some time with the crew here already and some of my mates. He's already become one of the most quotable people in the last couple of weeks and in recent memory for shows. So that's 2 episodes in. Yeah, the acting's really strong. Donald Glover, we know. Yeah. Paperboy himself, has got a real presence on the screen. And yeah, 2 episodes in, I can't wait for the 3rd.
So he just got off? Seems like a weird ending.
That actually happened.
Oh, is that why cops are mad? Because I'd be mad as hell.
Alrighty guys, so we've got to get out of here to go watch the 3rd episode of Atlanta, but thank you very much for yet again tuning into Frame by Frame. That's all we have time for this week.
And we'll see you next week.